I didn't expect to recognize him. Not like that. Not instantly. Not from across a crowded bar where the lights were too dim and the music was too loud and everyone kind of blurred together after a while. But somehow, I did. And the worst part? I think he recognized me first. I was halfway through my second drink, leaning against the bar, pretending I wasn't checking my phone every 30 seconds, when I felt that weird, prickling awareness. Like someone was looking at me. Not in a casual way. Not in a just scanning the room way. In a focused way. I tried to ignore it at first. Took a sip, nodded along to whatever my coworker Jason was saying beside me, something about his new gym routine. I wasn't really listening. Because that feeling didn't go away. It got stronger. So I turned. And that's when everything kind of stopped. He was standing near the back wall, half in shadow, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Taller than I remembered. Broader. Hair a little shorter, darker maybe. His posture was different too, more confident, like he knew people were looking at him. But it was still him. Wade. My stomach dropped so fast it actually made me dizzy. For a second, I thought I was wrong. That it just looked like him. That my brain was playing some stupid trick on me because I hadn't thought about high school in years. But then he smiled at something the other guy said. And yeah. No mistake. It was Wade. I hadn't seen him since graduation. 3 years. Maybe a little more. Back then, he was different. Or maybe I was. I don't know. All I know is that in high school, Wade was everything I tried not to think about. The kind of guy everyone liked without even trying. Loud, confident, always surrounded by people. Football team, parties every weekend, girls constantly hanging off his arm. And me? I was there. Same classes sometimes. Same hallways. Same town. But completely different worlds. Except for the moments when we weren't. And those were the ones that stuck with me. Dude, you okay? Jason's voice snapped me back. I blinked, realizing I'd been staring. Too long. Yeah. I muttered quickly, turning back to the bar. Just thought I saw someone I knew. Which was technically true. Just not the whole truth. I could still feel it though. That pull. Like something unfinished had just walked back into my life without asking. I told myself not to look again. I lasted maybe 5 seconds. When I glanced back, Wade wasn't talking anymore. He was looking straight at me. No hesitation. No confusion. Like he'd already figured it out. Like he'd known it was me the whole time. My chest tightened. And then he did something I wasn't ready for. He nodded. Just a small, casual nod. But it hit harder than anything else could have. Because it wasn't surprise. It wasn't awkward. It was recognition. Clear. Certain. Intentional. I turned away again, faster this time. Okay, Jason said, raising an eyebrow. That's not just someone you knew. I exhaled, rubbing the back of my neck. It's a guy from high school. What? I shot him a look. Jason. What? I'm just asking. I hesitated. And that alone was answer enough. He grinned. Oh, he's hot. That's not the point. Then what is the point? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Because I didn't even know how to explain it. How do you explain someone who never really belonged to you, but still managed to stay in your head for years? How do you explain almost moments? Things that could have happened, but didn't? Things you never said? Things he never said? But somehow you both felt anyway. I should go, I said suddenly. Jason frowned. We just got here. Yeah, I know, Tanner. I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in years. And somehow, it hadn't changed. Still low. Still steady. Still doing that thing where it made my name sound like it meant more than it should. Slowly I turned. Wade was standing right there. Closer than I expected. Close enough that I could actually see the differences now. The sharper jawline. The faint stubble. The way his shoulders filled out his shirt in a way they definitely didn't back then. He looked older. Not just physically. Like life had happened to him. And shaped him into someone I didn't fully recognize anymore. But his eyes? Those were the same. Locked on mine like nothing in the room existed. "Hey," he said. Simple. Casual. Like we'd just seen each other yesterday. My brain scrambled to catch up. "Hey," I managed. "Smooth, Tanner. Real smooth." Jason looked between us, clearly entertained, but thankfully stayed quiet. For a second, neither of us said anything. Just stood there, taking each other in. And yeah, it was weird. Because the guy in front of me wasn't the Wade I remembered. Not exactly. And I had a feeling. He was thinking the same thing about me. "You look different," Wade said finally. There was something in his tone I couldn't quite read. Not judgment. Not surprise. Something else. I let out a small, nervous laugh. "Yeah. You too." He smirked slightly at that. And there it was. That same expression. The one that used to mess with my head back in school. Like he knew something I didn't. Or maybe, like he remembered something I was trying to forget. "Didn't expect to see you here," he added. "Same," I said. A beat of silence. Then, "You still live around here?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Moved back after college. Didn't think you would." That caught me off guard. "Why not?" He shrugged, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "You always seemed like you wanted to get out." He wasn't wrong. And the fact that he noticed that back then. Yeah. That did something to me. "I did," I admitted. "Just didn't stick." Another pause. Longer this time. He studied me. Not in a casual way. In a way that made me feel seen. Uncomfortably seen. Like he was trying to piece something together. And then he said, "You still overthink everything?" I blinked. "What?" A small smile tugged at his lips. "Just checking." My heart skipped. Because that wasn't random. That was specific. That was him remembering me. And suddenly, I wasn't standing in a bar anymore. I was back in high school. Back in those weird, quiet moments between us that never made sense. The looks. The almost conversations. The tension that neither of us ever acknowledged. The feeling that something was there. But neither of us knew what to do with it. And now he was here again. Except this time. He didn't look unsure. At all. And that made me way more nervous than I wanted to admit. "I was actually just about to head out," I said, even though I hadn't been. Wade tilted his head slightly. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Another pause. Then he stepped just a little closer. Not enough to be obvious. But enough that I noticed. "Then let me walk you out." My breath caught. That wasn't a suggestion. Not really. It sounded casual. But there was something underneath it. Something familiar. Something I hadn't felt in years. That same quiet pull. That same "what is this feeling?" And before I could stop myself. "Okay," I said. As we started toward the door, I could feel it again. That tension. But it was different now. Stronger. Heavier. Because this time, we weren't kids anymore. And whatever Wade had become, I had a feeling I was about to find out. The hard way. I shouldn't have said yes. That was the first thought that hit me the second we stepped outside. The noise of the bar faded behind us, replaced by the cool night air and that weird, heavy silence that settles when it's just two people who used to know each other, but don't anymore. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. We walked side by side down the sidewalk, not too close, not too far. Just enough space to feel normal. Except nothing about it felt normal. I could feel him next to me. Not touching, not even looking at me, but there. Solid. Real. Way more present than anyone had a right to be after 3 years of nothing. You still doing that thing? Wade said suddenly. I frowned. What thing? He glanced over, that same half-smirk playing on his lips. Getting quiet when you're in your head. I let out a short breath, shaking my head. You always this observant. Or just with me? Just with you. He said it so easily. Like it didn't mean anything. Like it didn't hit me right in the chest. We walked a few more steps in silence before I spoke again. You didn't answer me earlier. About what? Why you noticed stuff like that back then? He didn't respond right away. And that hesitation? That was new. High school Wade never hesitated. He always had something to say. Always filled the space. But now he just thought. I don't know, he said finally. Guess you stood out. I huffed a quiet laugh. Yeah, I'm sure that's it. I'm serious. I looked at him. He wasn't smiling anymore. And suddenly, this didn't feel like casual conversation. You barely talked to anyone. He continued. Always had your headphones in. Kept to yourself. Yeah, that's usually how that works. But you still noticed everything. He added. I blinked. What? You'd look up at the exact moment someone said something interesting. Like you were tracking everything even when you pretended not to care. My stomach tightened. Because, yeah? That was accurate. Too accurate. And you remember that? I asked quietly. Wade shrugged, but there was something in his expression that didn't match the gesture. Something stick. We reached the edge of the parking lot. My car was a few rows down, sitting under a flickering streetlight that made everything look slightly unreal. I slowed down. He didn't. Which meant I had to either stop him, or keep walking. I kept walking. Of course I did. You disappeared, you know, Wade said. That made me stop. What? After graduation. I turned to face him. You mean like everyone does? He shook his head slightly. No. I mean you. There was something in his voice now. Something heavier. You stopped answering messages. He continued. Didn't show up to anything that summer. Just gone. My chest tightened. Because I remembered. Of course I remembered. I was busy. I said a little too quickly. With what? Life. Wade let out a quiet breath, looking away for a second before meeting my eyes again. That's not really an answer. Neither is your question. A beat of silence. Tension. Thick and familiar. But sharper now. You ever gonna tell me? He asked. Tell you what? Why you started avoiding me. My heart skipped. There it was. Straight to the point. Classic Wade. Except, not really. Because his tone wasn't teasing. It wasn't light. It was serious. And that made it worse. I didn't avoid you, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Tanner. Wade. Don't do that. Do what? That thing where you deflect instead of answering. I crossed my arms slightly, more out of instinct than anything. Maybe I just don't think it matters anymore. His jaw tightened. It mattered to me. That hit harder than I expected. For a second either of us spoke. Cars passed in the distance. Someone laughed somewhere behind us. But right there? It felt like everything narrowed down to just the two of us. Like it used to. You want to know the truth? I said finally. Wade didn't hesitate. Yeah. I exhaled slowly. Because once I said it, there was no taking it back. I didn't know what you wanted from me. His expression shifted. Just slightly. What does that mean? It means, I continued, forcing myself to hold his gaze, you were confusing. Confusing. Yeah. He let out a short, almost disbelieving laugh. How? I stared at him for a second. Seriously? You really don't know? No, Tanner, he said, stepping a little closer. I don't. So maybe you should explain it to me. And there it was again. That intensity. Stronger now. Closer. Harder to ignore. You'd act like we were friends, I said, but only when no one else was around. His brows pulled together. That's not. You talk to me after class. Walk with me sometimes. Sit next to me when you didn't have to. I swallowed. And then the second anyone else showed up, it was like I didn't exist. Silence. Heavy. Real. You'd look at me. I added, quieter now. Like you were about to say something. And then you never did. Wade didn't interrupt this time. Didn't argue. He just listened. And somehow that made it worse. So yeah, I finished. I didn't avoid you. I just stopped trying to figure you out. Another pause. Longer than the others. Then, I didn't think you noticed. I blinked. What? All of that, he said. I didn't think you noticed. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. Wade. I noticed everything. He stepped closer again. This time, I didn't move. Didn't step back. Didn't look away. Which meant we were standing way too close now. Close enough that I could see the slight tension in his jaw. The way his chest rose and fell a little slower than normal. You could have said something, he murmured. So could you. His eyes locked on mine. And for a second, it felt exactly like it used to. That same charged silence. That same almost. But then he said something that changed everything. I wanted to. My breath caught. What? I wanted to say something, he repeated. A lot of times. Then why didn't you? He held my gaze. Didn't look away. Didn't hesitate this time. Because I wasn't who you thought I was back then. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? He exhaled slowly. Like he was deciding something. Like he was about to cross a line he couldn't uncross. And then. That's what I meant earlier, he said quietly. When I said you wouldn't recognize me now. My pulse started to pick up. Wade. He stepped even closer. Close enough that if either of us moved even a little, we'd be touching. You really don't, he said, voice lower now. Not yet. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. Because whatever had changed about him, I had a feeling it wasn't small. And the way he was looking at me right now. Yeah. That wasn't confusion anymore. That was something else entirely. Something a lot more dangerous. Tell me, I said before I could stop myself. Wade's lips parted slightly. Like he wasn't expecting that. Like he thought I'd back off. I didn't. Not this time. Tell me who you are now. A long pause. Then. He smiled. Not like before. Not casual. Not teasing. Something deeper. Careful, Tanner, he said softly. You might not like the answer. And for some reason, that didn't scare me as much as it should have. It made me want to know even more. Which was probably my first mistake. I should have backed off. That would have been the smart move. Laugh it off, say something casual, get in my car, and leave before whatever this was had a chance to turn into something real. But instead I stayed. And worse. I leaned into it. Try me, I said. Wade watched me for a second like he was reassessing something. Like he was seeing if I actually meant it, or if I'd fold like I used to. I didn't. Not this time. A slow breath left him, his gaze dropping briefly to my lips before coming back up to my eyes. That small movement? Yeah. I noticed. Of course I did. You remember that party at Luke's place? He asked. The question threw me off. What? End of senior year. Big one. Everyone was there. I frowned slightly, thinking. Yeah. I remember. I hadn't wanted to go. Ended up going anyway. Spent most of the night standing near the kitchen, pretending I wasn't watching him from across the room. Watching the way he laughed, the way people gravitated toward him. The way he looked like he belonged there. Unlike me. Why? Wade's jaw shifted slightly. Because that was the first time I realized something was off. With what? With me. That caught my attention. Fully. What do you mean? He hesitated. Just for a second. Then he said it. I couldn't stop looking at you. My stomach dropped. Hard. You were standing near the counter. He continued, voice quieter now. Black hoodie. You kept checking your phone like you wanted to leave. I blinked. Because. Yeah. That was exactly what happened. You remember that? I asked. I remember everything about that night. There was something in the way he said it. Not casual. Not nostalgic. Intentional. Heavy. I didn't understand it at the time. Wade went on. I just thought. I don't know. That I was bored. Or drunk. He let out a quiet, humorless breath. But it kept happening. My chest tightened. What kept happening? You. That single word landed harder than anything else. You were always just there, he said. And I couldn't ignore it. I swallowed. Because suddenly, all those moments from high school, they weren't one-sided anymore. So what? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You were secretly obsessed with me or something? I meant it as a joke. Deflection. Same old habit. But Wade didn't laugh. Didn't even smile. No, he said. A pause. Then, I was trying not to be. That wasn't what I expected. At all. What? I didn't want it, he said simply. Didn't make sense. Didn't fit with anything else in my life. His gaze didn't leave mine. Especially not with you. That stung. More than I wanted to admit. Wow, I muttered. Glad I made such a strong impression. That's not what I meant. Sure sounds like it. He stepped closer again. Close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to keep eye contact. I meant, he said, voice lower now, you weren't supposed to matter. My breath caught. And you did anyway. Silence. Thick. Charged. Different from before. Because now, there were answers. Or at least pieces of them. So all that time, I said slowly. You knew? I knew something was wrong, he corrected. Didn't know what. And now? His expression shifted. Subtle. But I caught it. Now I do. I hesitated. Because I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. But I asked anyway. What is it? Wade held my gaze. Didn't look away. Didn't soften it. Back then? He said. A step closer. Or now? My heart started pounding. Both. A small pause. Then. Back then, I wanted you. The words hit like a shock to my system. Direct. No hesitation. No room to misinterpret. I felt my pulse spike instantly. And now? I managed. That was the dangerous question. I knew it the second I asked. Because something in his expression changed again. Darker. More certain. No, Wade said quietly. I don't plan on pretending I don't. That did something to me. Something immediate. Something I wasn't ready for. Because this wasn't high school anymore. This wasn't quiet glances and almost conversations. This was real. Direct. Unavoidable. You're serious, I said. It came out quieter than I intended. Yeah. And back then, you just what? Ignored it? I tried. And me? His jaw tightened slightly. I thought it would go away. I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Yeah. That worked out great. You stopped talking to me. You gave me nothing to work with. The words came out sharper than I expected. But I didn't take them back. Not this time. Wade didn't argue. Didn't deflect. He just nodded slightly. Yeah, he admitted. I did. That threw me off more than anything. No pushback. No ego. Just honesty. Another pause. But this one felt different. Less tense. More exposed. So what now? I asked. Because that was the only question that actually mattered. Wade looked at me like the answer was obvious. Now I stopped doing that. Doing what? Pretending. My chest tightened again. Wade. He stepped even closer. And this time, there was no space left between us. Not really. I could feel the heat from him. The slight shift of his breathing. Everything. You asked who I am now, he said softly. I nodded barely. Yeah. He leaned in just a fraction. Not enough to touch, but enough that it changed everything. I'm someone who doesn't walk away from things I want anymore. My heart slammed against my ribs. And you think you just get to what? I whispered. Show up after 3 years and… Yes. That stopped me. Completely. Because there was no hesitation in it. No doubt. Yes, he repeated, quieter now. Because you're still here. I swallowed. That doesn't mean anything. It does to me. His voice dropped just enough to make it feel like it was only for me. Like the rest of the world had disappeared. You could have left, he added. Back in the bar. Out here. A small pause. But you didn't. He wasn't wrong. And that was the problem. I don't know what you expect, I said. I don't expect anything. Then what is this? Wade's eyes flicked down to my lips again. Then back up. And this time, he didn't even try to hide it. This, he said quietly, is me finally not stopping myself. And before I could overthink it, before I could step back, before I could do the smart thing, his hand moved. Not fast. Not forceful. Just deliberate. Fingers brushing lightly against my wrist. Testing. Waiting. I didn't pull away. That was the moment everything shifted. Because now, it wasn't just words anymore. And the way he looked at me after that. Yeah. That wasn't high school Wade. Not even close. That was someone who knew exactly what he wanted. And for some reason, that someone was looking at me like I was it. I felt it immediately. That small touch. Barely anything, just his fingers brushing against my wrist, but it hit like something way bigger. Like crossing a line we'd been standing on for years without ever acknowledging it. And now? There was no pretending it wasn't there. I looked down at his hand. Then back up at him. He didn't move it. Didn't tighten his grip. Didn't push further. He just left it there. Waiting. Giving me the choice. You're really doing this? I said quietly. It wasn't a question. Wade's expression didn't change. Yeah. No hesitation. No backing down. I let out a slow breath. Because my brain was catching up now. To everything. To what he said. To what this meant. To how easily this could go somewhere I wasn't ready for. This isn't high school, I added. I know. You don't get to just decide something and expect me to. I'm not deciding for you. That stopped me. His thumb shifted slightly against my wrist. Still light. Still careful. But I'm not ignoring it either, he said. I searched his face. Looking for something. Doubt. Uncertainty. Anything. But it wasn't there. And that was new. Because the Wade I knew back then. He lived in hesitation when it came to this. You've changed, I said. It came out softer than I meant. He tilted his head slightly. Yeah. That's it. Just yeah? A faint smirk touched his lips. What do you want me to say? I don't know, I admitted. Something that makes this make sense. His gaze softened just a little. Okay, he said. Then, quieter. I spent 3 years figuring myself out. That shifted something. Because suddenly, this wasn't just confidence. It wasn't just him showing up and pushing. There was history behind it. Growth. Something I hadn't seen. I left right after graduation, he continued. Got out of here as fast as I could. Yeah, I muttered. I noticed. He ignored the edge in my tone. Moved to a different city. Didn't know anyone. Didn't have anyone. A pause. That helped. I frowned slightly. How? No expectations, he said. No one who already thought they knew who I was. That made sense. Too much sense. So you just figured it out? I asked. Not all at once. His thumb brushed slightly again. Absent-minded this time. Or maybe not. Started small, he said. Stopped pretending certain things didn't exist. My pulse picked up again. You mean? Yeah. No hesitation. And now you're just okay with it? I asked. Yeah. That easy? Wade looked at me for a long second. It wasn't easy. A beat. But it's simple now. Simple. God, I hated that word in that moment. Because nothing about this felt simple to me. Not even close. And what about me? I asked before I could stop myself. His expression shifted again. More focused. More intense. What about you? You just show up and suddenly what? I'm part of this whole realization. No. He said it immediately. Firm. Clear. You were part of it back then. My chest tightened. And now? A small step closer. Even though there was barely any space left. Now I get to see if you still are. That did something dangerous to my head. Because it wasn't pressure. It wasn't expectation. It was an opening. And somehow, that made it harder to push away. You really think I'm just gonna fall into this? I said. I think you're already standing in it. I let out a quiet, frustrated laugh. You're unbelievable. I've been called worse. I'm serious, Wade. So am I. Silence again. But this one felt different. Less sharp. More loaded. I looked down at his hand still on my wrist. Still light. Still waiting. You gonna let go? I asked. His eyes flicked down briefly. Then back up. Do you want me to? I hesitated. And that hesitation? Yeah. He noticed. Of course he did. That's not fair, I muttered. Why not? Because you already know the answer. A small pause. Then quieter. Yeah. That was the thing about Wade. Even back then. He noticed everything. Just like he said about me. So instead of pulling away, I did the opposite. Barely. Just enough. I shifted my wrist slightly in his grip. Not breaking the contact. Just adjusting it. Accepting it. His fingers tightened. Not much. But enough to change it from a question to something real. Okay, he said softly. Like that small movement had just answered something bigger. Don't read into that, I warned. Too late. We both knew it. I'm not, he said. A pause. Then lower. I'm just paying attention. Of course he was. We stood there like that for a second longer. Too close. Too aware. Too much. And then a car passed by, headlights cutting across us, breaking the moment just enough for reality to slip back in. I blinked, taking a small step back. This time, he let me. His hand dropped from my wrist. Slow. Not rushed. Like he wasn't worried about losing the contact. Like he knew it wasn't going anywhere. I should go, I said. For real this time. Wade nodded. But he didn't step away. Yeah, he said. You should. But his eyes stayed on mine. I turned toward my car. Took a few steps. Then stopped. Because something was pulling at me again. That same unfinished feeling. I turned back. Wade hadn't moved. Still watching me. What? I asked. He exhaled slowly. Like he was holding something back. Then, you're not gonna disappear again, are you? That hit harder than everything else. I hesitated. Because part of me wanted to say yes. To keep things simple, safe, distant. But the other part? The one that had stayed. The one that didn't pull away. No, I said. Wade's expression shifted. Subtle. But real. Good, he said. And the way he said it? Yeah. That wasn't casual. Not even a little. I got in my car before I could say anything else. Before I could overthink it. Before I could change my answer. But as I started the engine, I realized something. 3 years ago, I walked away from him. Because I didn't understand what he was. What he wanted. What we were. Now, I understood just enough to know one thing. This wasn't going to be simple. Not even close. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I wanted it to be. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, phone in my hand, replaying everything over and over like my brain refused to let it settle. The way he looked at me. The things he said. The way he didn't hesitate. That was the part that stuck the most. Because Wade used to hesitate. All the time. Back in high school, everything with him felt like it lived in that space between almost and never. Like we were always right on the edge of something. But neither of us ever stepped over it. Now, he didn't even seem to see the edge anymore. I groaned, dragging a hand over my face. This is a bad idea, I muttered to myself. And I meant it. I really did. Because I knew how this could go. How it usually went. You build something up in your head. You attach meaning to things that might not even be real. And then, it falls apart. But the problem was, this didn't feel imagined. Not this time. My phone buzzed in my hand. I froze. For a second, I didn't even want to look. Because I already knew. Wade. I stared at the notification for a solid 5 seconds before opening it. Wade. You make it home okay? Simple. Casual. Like everything that happened tonight didn't just shift something major between us. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted that too. God, I hated this. Finally. Me. Yeah. I hit send before I could overthink it again. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Of course they did. Wade. Good. A pause. Then, you always overthink this much, or is it just with me? I let out a quiet laugh despite myself. Of course he'd say that. Me. Don't start. Wade. Too late. I stared at the screen. At the blinking cursor. At the fact that this felt easy. Too easy. Like we hadn't just spent years not talking. Wade. You working tomorrow? I hesitated. Because I knew where this was going. And I knew I should probably shut it down. Set some kind of boundary. Keep things normal. Instead. Me. Yeah. Late shift. A few seconds passed. Then. Wade. Coffee before? There it was. Clear. Direct. No games. I leaned my head back against the pillow. Stared at the ceiling again. Because this was the moment. The one where I decided whether tonight was just a weird, unexpected run-in. Or the start of something. And the smart choice? Would have been to say no. Take control. Keep distance. But instead. Me. What time? I didn't even try to justify it. His reply came almost instantly. 10? I checked the time. Did the math. Knew I had just enough time to go, regret it, overthink everything, and still make it to work. Perfect. Me. Fine. A pause. Then. I'll send you the place. And just like that. It was set. I dropped my phone onto my chest. Exhaled slowly. Great, I muttered. Really great decision-making, Tanner. But even as I said it, I couldn't ignore the small, quiet pull sitting in my chest. Because part of me wanted this. And that was the real problem. The next morning came way too fast. I stood in front of my mirror longer than I should have. Changing shirts. Then changing again. Then going back to the first one. This is stupid, I said under my breath. It's just coffee. But it didn't feel like just coffee. Not even close. Because this wasn't just Wade. Not anymore. This was Wade who knew what he wanted. And wasn't afraid to say it. And apparently, that did something to me. I grabbed my keys and forced myself out the door before I could bail. The place he sent was small. Quiet. The kind of cafe that wasn't trying too hard but still felt intentional. Of course it was. I spotted him immediately. Sitting by the window. Like he'd been there for a while. And yeah. Seeing him in daylight? That was different. Less shadow. Less mystery. More real. He looked up as I walked in. And that same look from last night. Still there. Just steadier. Took you long enough, he said as I approached. I raised an eyebrow, sliding into the seat across from him. I'm 2 minutes early. Still counts. I shook my head, but I could feel it already. That same tension. That same awareness. You order already? I asked. Yeah. Got you something too. That made me pause. You don't even know what I. Black coffee. No sugar. I blinked. Okay, that's creepy. A small smirk. You haven't changed that much. Right. Of course. A server dropped the cup in front of me. And yeah, he was right. I wrapped my hands around it, more for something to do than anything else. So, I said, this is happening. Yeah. That's all you've got? What do you want me to say? I exhaled, shaking my head. I don't know. Something that makes this less weird. Wade leaned back slightly in his chair, studying me. It's not weird, he said. It's just new. I let out a quiet laugh. Feels pretty weird to me. Because you're still thinking about it like it's back then. That caught my attention. What does that mean? It means, he said, leaning forward slightly, you're waiting for it to fall into the same pattern. My grip tightened slightly on the cup. Because. Yeah. That was exactly what I was doing. And it's not going to. He added. You don't know that. I do. How? His eyes locked on mine. And there it was again. That certainty. Because I'm not that guy anymore. Silence. And you think that's enough? I asked quietly. I think it's a start. A pause. Then. You still haven't told me what you want. That question. Yeah. That one hit differently. Because I didn't have a clean answer. Not yet. I don't know, I admitted. And for the first time since last night. That made him pause. Just slightly. But I saw it. And something told me. This wasn't just simple for him either. Which somehow made this even more dangerous. That was the first crack. Small. Subtle. But I saw it. Wade didn't react the way I expected when I said, I don't know. He didn't push. Didn't immediately try to fill the silence like he had been doing all morning. He just sat there. Watching me. Thinking. And for the first time since last night. He didn't look completely in control. Okay, he said finally. Simple. No pressure. I blinked. That's it. He shrugged slightly. I'd rather you say that than lie. That caught me off guard. Who said I'd lie? A faint smirk. You used to. I scoffed. No, I didn't. You used to say things were fine when they clearly weren't. I opened my mouth to argue. Then stopped. Because. Yeah. That was true. That's different. I muttered. Not really. Silence settled between us again. But it didn't feel as sharp this time. Less like tension. More like space. I took a sip of my coffee. More to buy time than anything. So what do you want? I asked, setting the cup down. Because if he was gonna put me on the spot. He wasn't getting out of it either. Wade didn't hesitate. I want to see where this goes. This being. His eyes held mine. You and me. There it was again. Direct. Clear. No room to pretend it meant something else. And if I decide I don't? I asked. A small pause. Not long. But enough to matter. Then you don't, he said. Just like that. I narrowed my eyes slightly. You're really okay with that? No. That answer came faster. More honest. But I'll deal with it, he added. And somehow, that felt more real than anything else he'd said. Why? I asked. It slipped out before I could stop it. Why me? That question lingered between us. Heavy. Because it wasn't really about attraction. Or timing. Or coincidence. It was about something deeper. Something I didn't fully understand yet. Wade leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose. Like he'd been expecting that one. I could give you some easy answer, he said. Say it's because I've always been into you. A small pause. But that's not it. That made my chest tighten. Then what is it? His gaze didn't waver. Because you were the only person back then who didn't treat me like I had everything figured out. I frowned slightly. I didn't treat you at all. Exactly. That wasn't what I expected. Everyone else already had a version of me in their head. He continued. The loud guy. The confident one. The one who always knew what he was doing. A small, humorless smile. You didn't. I swallowed. Because that was true. I didn't see him like that. Not really. You looked at me like you were trying to figure me out, he said. My stomach tightened. And I think that scared me more than anything. Why? I asked quietly. Because I didn't know the answer either. That landed somewhere deep. For a second, either of us spoke. The cafe noise filled in the silence, cups clinking, low conversations, a door opening somewhere behind me. But at our table? It still felt like everything narrowed in. And now you do? I asked. Wade tilted his head slightly. Enough. Enough to just jump into this? I'm not jumping, he said. I'm choosing. God. That word again. That certainty. And you expect me to just catch up? I asked. No. A beat. I expect you to take your time. That slowed something in my chest. Just a little. But I'm not going anywhere this time, he added. And yeah. That part? That part hit. Because 3 years ago. He did. Even if either of us said it out loud. I looked down at my coffee again, watching the surface ripple slightly as I moved the cup. You don't get it, I said quietly. Then explain it to me. I hesitated. Because this wasn't easy to say. Not even now. You were a thing for me, I admitted. Wade didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Just listened. Not like a crush I could just talk about, I continued. More like something I had to manage. A small, dry laugh. Which sounds ridiculous now, but back then. It doesn't sound ridiculous, he said. And the way he said it? Soft. Careful. I looked up at him. You have no idea what that was like. His expression shifted. Slightly. You're right, he said. I don't. A pause. But I think I know what it felt like to not be able to do anything about it. That? Yeah. That got through. Every time I almost said something, he continued, it felt like I was about to blow up my entire life. My chest tightened again. Because I understood that. Too well. And then I'd see you, he added, quieter now. And it got worse. Silence. I thought if I just ignored it, it would go away, he said. It didn't. I let out a slow breath. Yeah. I noticed. A faint smile. Not teasing. Not overly confident. Just real. Yeah, he said. I guess you did. Another pause. But this one felt different again. Less heavy. More honest. So what happens now? I asked. Because we were past the point of pretending this was nothing. Wade leaned forward slightly. Not too close. Not pushing. Just present. No, he said. We stop acting like we don't know what this is. My pulse picked up. Which is? His eyes flicked down to my lips again. Then back up. Slow. Intentional. Something we didn't finish. That word hit. Finish. Because he was right. Whatever this was, it didn't start last night. It started years ago. And just never went anywhere. Until now. And you think it's that simple? I asked. Not simple, he said. A chance. I stared at him for a second, trying to figure out if I believed that. Trying to figure out if I wanted to. Because this wasn't just attraction. This was history. Tension. Unfinished things. And those were always the ones that got complicated. You're asking for a lot, I said quietly. I know. And you're just okay with that? A small pause. Then. No. I blinked. What? I'm not okay with it, he said. I just want it anyway. That? Yeah. That was the moment something shifted again. Because that wasn't confidence. Not really. That was honesty. And for some reason, that made it harder to walk away. A lot harder. I leaned back slightly in my chair. Exhaled. You're really not making this easy. Wade's lips curved just a little. Wasn't planning to. Of course he wasn't. And the worst part? I was starting to realize. I didn't actually want it to be easy. I was in trouble. That was the first clear thought that hit me as I walked out of the cafe. Not because of anything dramatic. Not because something huge had happened. But because nothing scared me off. If anything, it pulled me in more. I checked my phone again as I reached my car. No new messages. Of course not. We'd just left each other. Still, I half expected something. A follow-up. A push. That was the version of Wade I had in my head now. But he didn't. And that somehow made it worse. Because it meant he meant what he said. He wasn't going to chase. He wasn't going to force it. He was just there. Waiting to see what I'd do. Great, I muttered, unlocking my car. Now I have to think. Work was a blur. I showed up. Did what I had to do. Talked when people talked to me. Nodded at the right times. But my head? Not there. Not even close. Every quiet moment. Every second I wasn't actively doing something. My brain went right back to him. The way he said, I want it anyway. The way he looked at me when he said it. God. You good? I blinked, snapping out of it. My coworker Mia was leaning against the counter, watching me with a knowing look. Yeah, I said quickly. Uh-huh, she hummed. You've been zoning out for like 20 minutes. I rubbed the back of my neck. Just tired. She didn't buy it. Not even a little. Okay, who is he? I froze. What? She grinned. Please. I know that look. I don't have a look. You do, she said. It's your I'm thinking about a guy but I don't want to admit it look. I scoffed. That's not a thing. It is now. I shook my head, turning away, pretending to reorganize something that didn't need reorganizing. Drop it. Oh, I will, she said easily. Right after you tell me if he's new or tragic. I paused. Because. That was a question. Both, I muttered before I could stop myself. Mia lit up. Oh my God, I knew it. Keep your voice down. No, she said, leaning closer. Details. Now. I hesitated. Because I didn't even know where to start. He's from high school, I said finally. Oof. She winced. Yeah, that's already bad. Yeah. Like, never spoke again or something happened? I exhaled. Something happened. Her eyes widened. Oh, this is good. It's not good. It's interesting. I shook my head again, but there was no real heat behind it. Because part of me knew she was right. So what happened? She pressed. I leaned against the counter. Stared at the floor for a second. We never figured it out, I said. What does that mean? It means there was something there, I said. But we never said it out loud. Mia's expression softened slightly. Ah. And now? She asked. I hesitated. Because saying it out loud made it real. Now he's back, I said. And now he knows what it is. A pause. Then, and you don't? That hit. Because. Yeah. That was the problem. I don't know if I trust it, I admitted. Mia tilted her head. Trust what? Him. This. The timing. I ran a hand through my hair. It's like he skipped all the confusion part and went straight to being sure. And that's bad? She asked. I opened my mouth. Then stopped. Because I didn't have a clean answer. I don't know, I said again. God, I hated that answer. Mia studied me for a second. Then smiled slightly. You like him? She said. I looked away. That's not the question, I muttered. It kind of is, she replied. Silence. Because yeah? That was the part one wasn't saying. That I didn't just like him. I always had. And that made this way more complicated than it should have been. Look, Mia said softer now. You don't have to have it all figured out. I know. But don't act like this is just some random guy. I didn't respond. Because it wasn't. And don't punish him for who he was back then, she added. That's not. It kind of is. I frowned slightly. He was confused, she said. You were too. That doesn't make it fake. That stuck. Because I hadn't thought about it like that. I'd always seen it as unfinished. Messy. Something that never worked. But not real. And now, she continued, he's showing up differently. I swallowed. And you're still treating it like it's the same situation. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I admitted. Mia smiled a little. Then maybe the question isn't do you trust him? She said. I glanced at her. Maybe it's are you ready to see him as who he is now? That stayed with me. The rest of the shift. The drive home. Even when I was lying in bed later that night. Because it changed something. Just slightly. Not enough to give me answers. But enough to shift the question. And right as I was starting to drift off, my phone buzzed. I reached for it without thinking. Wade. Of course. I opened it. You busy tomorrow? Simple. Direct. Same as always. But this time, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like a choice. I stared at the message for a second, thinking. Then slowly, I started typing. Because whether I liked it or not, I wasn't avoiding him this time. Not again. I stared at his message longer than I should have. You busy tomorrow? Simple. But it didn't feel simple. Not anymore. Because now I knew what this was. Or at least, what it could be. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. Mia's words were still stuck in my head. Are you ready to see him as who he is now? I didn't have a clean answer to that. But I had something else. I wasn't running. And that had to count for something. So I typed. Me. Depends. What are you planning? The reply came a little slower this time. Not instant. Like he was actually thinking about it. Dinner. A pause. Then. No pressure. I smiled slightly at that. Because yeah. That was new. Me. Okay. I stared at it for a second. Then added. Yeah. I'm free. Sent. And just like that, there was no going back. The next evening felt different. Not nervous like before. Not chaotic. Just steady. Like something had already been decided. Even if I hadn't fully said it out loud yet. The place he picked wasn't loud. Not crowded. Somewhere in between casual and intentional. Of course it was. I spotted him outside this time. Leaning against the railing, hands in his pockets. Waiting. And something about that. That he was already there. That he wasn't late. That he looked like he meant to be there. Yeah. That did something to me. He looked up as I approached. And there it was again. That look. But softer now. Less intense. Hey, he said. Hey. For a second, either of us moved. Then he pushed off the railing. You came, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You asked? A small smirk. Still counts. We went inside. Got seated. Ordered. And this time, it felt different. Less like tension. More like something building. So, I said, leaning back slightly. This is your big plan? Yeah. That's it. He shrugged. Figured I'd keep it simple. I studied him for a second. You're being weirdly calm about this. He tilted his head. Should I not be? I don't know, I admitted. I kind of expected you to push more. A faint smile. I don't need to. That? Yeah. That landed. Confident, I muttered. Patient. I huffed a quiet laugh. Since when? Since I realized I don't have to rush something I actually want. There it was again. That honesty. That lack of games. And for the first time, it didn't make me nervous. It made me settle. Dinner went easier than I expected. We talked. Not just about the past, but about everything in between. Where he went. What he did. How he figured things out. And yeah, there were still moments. Looks that lingered a little too long. Silences that meant more than they should. But it didn't feel like unfinished tension anymore. It felt like something finally moving forward. At some point, we ended up outside again. Same as the first night. Only this time, it didn't feel uncertain. You're different, I said. Wade glanced at me. Yeah. You said that. No. I shook my head. I mean, I get it now. A small pause. Get what? I stepped a little closer. Not all the way. But enough. Why you don't hesitate anymore? His expression shifted slightly. More focused. Yeah? He asked. Yeah. A beat of silence. And? He added. I hesitated. Just for a second. Then, I think I was waiting for you to mess it up. That got his attention. And? He repeated. I met his eyes. Didn't look away. You didn't. Something softened in his expression. Just a little. Not planning to, he said. I know. And that was the moment. Because 3 years ago, I didn't trust it. Didn't trust him. Didn't trust myself. But now, I stepped closer. Fully this time. Close enough that the space between us disappeared. And yeah, I could feel it again. That pull. But it wasn't confusing anymore. It was clear. You're still overthinking, Wade said quietly. I let out a small breath. Yeah. His gaze dropped to my lips. Then back up. But you're still here, he added. I nodded slightly. Yeah. A pause. Then. You gonna do something about that? He asked. And this time, I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I said. And then I closed the distance. Not rushed. Not unsure. Just certain. And when I kissed him, it didn't feel new. It felt like something that had been waiting. Finally happening. Later that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling again. It felt different. Not chaotic. Not confusing. Just quiet. Because for the first time since high school, there was no almost. No unfinished tension. No wondering what it could have been. Because now, I knew exactly what it was. And this time, I wasn't letting it go.